Hello, I'm Mike Stoltz, and this is Gaming as a Teaching Strategy. Learner objectives. At the end of this presentation, the learner will be able to name 3 types of didactic gaming. At the end of this presentation, the learner will be able to list 3 advantages to gaming as a learning strategy. You will be able to list 3 disadvantages to gaming as a learning strategy. And at the end of this presentation, you will be able to list 3 ways that gaming as a learning strategy is used in the training of healthcare professionals. So what is gaming theory? Alzine et al. Defines gaming theory as a set of concepts aimed at decision-making in situations of competition and conflict, as well as cooperation and interdependence under specified rules. Which is a lot of words, but it basically means that you're either working individually or together in competition with another individual or another group of individuals, and you're doing it under a specified rule. History of gaming theory. So didactic games, or games that are intended to learn something, have been around for thousands of years, with the earliest board games being found dating back to 3000 BC. Games like chess and Nefertafel date back to 1500 years, and they were used to teach soldiers about war strategy. There's 3 types of didactic gaming: simulation-based, decision-based, and psychological. Simulation-based games are games where the learners attempt to mimic the actions of another in real-life situations. Most commonly known for nursing students is the sim lab, where you have that simulation dummy with a computer hooked up to them. They've gotten very advanced now. You hear breath sounds, you can hear heart rate. There's pulses that you can feel now. You can do any number of things with these simulation dummies, and they can be controlled by the instructor, who can provide that feedback where, nurse does something right, you see the patient improve. Nurse doesn't do something right, you see the patient decline. On the right, you also see that kind of simulation. Looks like they're putting IVs where they have an arm. You can see the tubing coming out of the arm there. Looks like if they do get it in the right vein, then they'll get that feedback of the blood flash. Decision-based games are games where role-playing games are where words, thoughts, and personalities are used to teach. The game that I found was a game called Flatline, where you're a nurse. It's almost like a role-playing game / board game. You're a nurse in this future environment, and there's a bomb that goes off, and you have to deal with the different patients that are coming in as best as you can. And if you do well, then you will end up saving people. If not, then you'll lose the game and end up losing lives, simulated lives. On the right, you've probably done this before in nursing school, if you went there. These are like your psych rotation, where you'd sit down and talk to somebody who's going through depression or who's suicidal, and have those difficult conversations in a safer environment where, when you get to the real thing, you've done it before. Sometimes it's a poor substitute, but it's better than nothing, and it does develop some level of comfort. Psychological games are games that are based on interactions either in groups or as individuals to achieve a goal. Not to be confused with your decision-based games and the role-playing. These games are more where you work as a team or you work as individuals. The examples I found, you remember the group work that you'd have to do with the filling out of sheets, and then you would answer the questions. You might keep points or score in class, but that's kind of given way to this new thing called Kahoot. It's a new engine wherein you download the app to your smartphone, tablet, or computer, and then your instructor can upload a whole quiz on there, give you a PIN number, you open up the app, put the PIN in, and then you're all logged into that session. And you can play interactive games, you can take quizzes together, working as teams or as individuals is pretty neat. So pop quiz. Which of the following is not one of the 3 types of didactic gaming that we discussed? Simulation-based gaming, B, reality-based gaming, C, decision-based gaming, or D, psychological gaming? And the answer is B, reality-based gaming. You can almost lump that in with a lot of the things that we talked about, but it's not by itself one of the didactic games that we talked about. So if you got it right, good job, buddy. Advantages using gaming theory to learn or teach. Using simulation to engage the learner. Uses stimulation to engage the learner. Competition is fierce with some people, and that kind of energy into a group or into an individual can help them have increased retention and faster learning. It promotes cohesion and teamwork. When you're working together, you feel like you need to perform because there's people relying on you. It does provide immediate feedback. If you got that question wrong right away. If you did that skill wrong right away. Promotes critical thinking ability by applying theory to practice. And that's huge. When you go into a class and you learn about something in theory and then you go to the sim lab and you get to work that out and see how it plays out in different directions. That helps you develop that critical thinking for when you're at bedside. Games appeal to many people of many ages. I have a son who's loved playing games since he was 2, is now on the chess team. He's beating me sometimes. So he's a very smart kid, but I also have a grandma who loves playing board games, does not like losing them, and has cleared a table a time or two. Also improve retention and learning. Again, that kind of competition, that kind of emotion into a game makes you retain things more and remember them longer. Disadvantages to gaming theory. Cost. They can be very expensive to produce some of these games. Time consuming. It does eat up a lot of time. I mean, think of all the programming Kahoot had to do and all the money that they had to use to try and get that started. They can be noisy. If you can imagine being in a classroom with children, as adults, you have a little more control, but not always. That can develop into chaos. And because of the rapid advancement of technology, things like Kahoot, things like some virtual reality simulations, it's difficult to get long-term studies completed because by the time that, that would be completed, it's almost obsolete, it's antiquated, and they've moved on to something more advanced. So I'm going to let you watch this quick game, it is a game. It's a video of a game about nursing and just kind of see how like a first semester nurse would do donning isolation equipment. All right, so you could see how the nursing student was provided with that immediate feedback when he didn't get it right, and was not allowed to advance into the next part of the game until he had that skill mastered. So with that repetition and working things out, he has increased his retention and learning ability. Using gaming theory to teach patience. So this is something that I think we'll see very soon, if not already. Their tablets have been used a lot in the hospitals of late. I think that it would be relatively easy to involve a patient and their family with, discharge teaching or teaching them about diabetes or some new affliction or chronic illness that they had, as well as just general wellness. There's a lot of different games that I came across in research that said talked about good eating habits or managing your diabetes and things like that. On the right, you see a guy with virtual reality glasses on. These are already being used and they're relatively cheap. The glasses themselves are like $10 to $15 a piece, and they just use a smartphone, which most of us have, and you just slide it in, download an app, and you're on your way. Using gaming theory to teach peers. I hate to tell you if you just graduated nursing school, but it doesn't get any better with simulations. We don't do them as frequently, but we still have what we call fast fives, where it's a mock code situation and the patient is dynamic. It is a dummy. They can change things. They can change things on the monitor, and we have to adjust to them. You're working as a group just like you would normally run a code, because you don't know that it's not a real person until you get to the room. So you run everything the same, you debrief afterwards, and you talk about what you did right, what you did wrong, and then you do it again a few months later. On the left, you see people just sitting around working. We still do that too. We still have our, your different committee champions will put out a test, and whoever fills it out first and gets it back will win a coffee mug or something like that. So we do still do it. It's still done pretty regularly. Using gaming to teach in the community, the things that I thought about the most were CPR classes, because you do receive that feedback right away. You are working hands-on, you are simulating a life-saving activity, as well as on the right, they have something called Stop the Bleed, which is a newer movement that we've been doing a lot with trauma. We go out in the community and teach them how to use tourniquets. And you see in that dummy that feedback loop would be pretty quick, where the patient's bleeding. If you don't get the tourniquet on tight enough in the right spot, they're not going to stop bleeding. So you know right away if you've done it right or not. So here are my references if you're curious to look up and learn more about these things. And thank you very much for listening.